She probably can't even spell quarterly earnings, let alone understand them. The laughter that followed that sentence echoed through the glass walls of the conference room, loud enough for me to hear every syllable as I stood frozen in the hallway, a tray of coffee cups trembling in my hands. The voice belonged to Megan Ashford, the 24-year-old intern who had joined Titan Industries 3 weeks ago. But what made my blood run cold wasn't her words. It was the 15 senior executives sitting around that table, nodding and chuckling along with her, completely unaware that the brainless trophy wife they were mocking had single-handedly built the algorithm that made their Christmas bonuses possible. My name is Vanessa Morgan Blackwell, and this is the story of how a $12 cup of coffee exposed the rot at the heart of a billion-dollar company. Let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in Appalachian, Kentucky, in a town so small it didn't even have a traffic light. My father worked in the coal mines until black lung took him when I was 12. My mother worked double shifts as a waitress at the only diner in town, coming home with aching feet and tips that barely covered our electricity bill. We didn't have much, but we had books. My mother made sure of that. Every spare dollar went to secondhand paperbacks from the church sale, and I devoured them like they were oxygen. By the time I was 16, I had taught myself calculus from a water-damaged textbook I found in the library's discard bin. By 18, I had a full scholarship to MIT. By 22, I had a PhD in computational mathematics and 3 patents pending for machine learning algorithms that would revolutionize data analytics. I didn't meet Marcus Blackwell at a cocktail party or a charity gala. I met him in a basement. Specifically, the basement of a failing tech startup in Boston where I was working 90-hour weeks as the lead developer, surviving on instant ramen and sheer stubbornness. Marcus was an investor who had come to evaluate the company. Everyone else pitched him on market potential and growth trajectories. I pitched him on the mathematics, on the elegant architecture of the code, on the potential to change how businesses understood their own data. He didn't invest in the company. He invested in me. Not romantically. Not at first. Marcus saw something in my work that no one else had bothered to look for. He offered to fund my research independently, no strings attached. For 2 years, we worked together as colleagues and friends. He never once made a move, never once suggested our relationship should be anything other than professional. It was only after I had built the prototype that would eventually become Titan Analytics, the crown jewel of his company's portfolio, that he asked me to dinner. "I've been in love with you since the moment you told me my projections were mathematically illiterate," he said over pasta in a tiny Italian restaurant in the North End. "But I needed you to know that my feelings have nothing to do with your work. Your work speaks for itself. I just want a chance to speak for myself." We were married 18 months later. That was 5 years ago. And in those 5 years, I made a choice that I sometimes regretted. I chose to stay in the shadows. It wasn't Marcus's idea. He begged me to take a public role, to claim credit for the technology one had created. But I had seen what happened to women in tech who stepped into the spotlight. The scrutiny. The harassment. The way every achievement was picked apart and attributed to luck, connections, or worse. I wanted my work to speak for itself without my face attached to it. So I became a silent partner. On paper, I was simply the CEO's wife, a woman who occasionally visited the office to bring her husband lunch or attend company events. In reality, I was the chief architect behind every major innovation Titan Industries had launched in half a decade. I worked from home, communicating with the development team through encrypted channels under a pseudonym. Only Marcus and 3 senior board members knew the truth. It was a comfortable arrangement. Until Megan Ashford arrived. Megan was the daughter of Senator Richard Ashford, a powerful politician with connections that stretched from Wall Street to Washington. She had graduated from an Ivy League university with a degree in business administration and an unshakable belief that she was destined for greatness. Her father had called in a favor to get her an internship at Titan, and from day one, she acted like she already owned the place. I first noticed her during a company-wide meeting where Marcus was presenting the quarterly results. I was sitting in the back, as I always did, dressed simply in jeans and a cardigan. Megan was in the front row, hanging on Marcus's every word, laughing too loudly at his jokes, finding excuses to touch his arm during the reception afterward. I didn't think much of it. Marcus was an attractive, powerful man. Women flirted with him all the time. He always handled it gracefully, redirecting the conversation, mentioning me casually but pointedly. I trusted him completely. What I didn't anticipate was Megan's reaction to rejection. The first incident happened 2 weeks into her internship. I had stopped by the office to drop off some documents Marcus needed for an overseas meeting. I was wearing yoga pants and a hoodie, my hair in a messy bun. I looked exactly like what I was, a woman who had been working from home and hadn't bothered to dress up. Megan was at the reception desk, chatting with the security guard. When she saw me, her eyes swept over my appearance with barely concealed disgust. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone suggesting she very much did not want to help me. I'm here to see Marcus Blackwell. Her eyebrows shot up. Do you have an appointment? Mr. Blackwell is very busy. He doesn't just see anyone who walks in off the street. I felt my jaw tighten. I'm his wife. The transformation on her face was remarkable. Disgust melted into disbelief, then rearranged itself into a smile so fake it could have been injection molded. Oh, Mrs. Blackwell. I'm so sorry, I didn't recognize you. You look so different from your photos. I knew exactly what she meant. The photos she had seen were from charity galas and corporate events, where I wore designer gowns and professional makeup. Standing here in my comfortable clothes, I apparently didn't meet her standards for a billionaire's wife. That's fine, I said coolly. I'll show myself up. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Over the following weeks, I began to hear things. Whispers that reached me through the few people at Titan who knew my true role. Megan had been talking. Not just talking, campaigning. She had made it her personal mission to convince everyone in the office that I was a gold digger, a scheming woman who had trapped Marcus Blackwell into marriage for his money. She was probably a waitress or something, I heard she said during a lunch break. You know the type. Pretty enough to catch his eye, smart enough to get pregnant before the prenup was signed. I heard she doesn't even have a college degree, she told a group of assistants by the coffee machine. Marcus just keeps her around because she's good in bed. It's honestly sad. He could do so much better. The rumors spread like wildfire. Suddenly, people who had always been friendly to me became distant. I would walk into a room and conversations would stop. Assistants who used to smile would look away. The security guard who had known me for years started asking for my ID every time I visited. Marcus was furious when I told him. He wanted to fire her immediately. No, I said. Not yet. I want to see how far she's willing to go. I didn't have to wait long. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I had come to the office for a legitimate reason. There was a bug in the latest software update that I needed to fix personally. I was in the server room, hidden behind rows of humming machines, when I heard voices approaching. I'm telling you, it's embarrassing, Megan's voice rang out. The man is a genius, a visionary, and he's shackled to some Appalachian hillbilly who probably thinks HTML is a type of sandwich. Laughter. Multiple voices. They were getting closer. The worst part is, she actually shows up here sometimes. Like she belongs. Like anyone wants to see her wandering around in her Walmart clothes, pretending she understands what we do. More laughter. I recognized some of those voices now. Senior developers. Project managers. People who should have known better. People who had benefited directly from my work without ever knowing it. Someone should really tell her the truth, Megan continued, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. She's not a partner. She's not even arm candy. She's just maintenance. Like a housekeeper who got lucky. I stood up from behind the server rack. The silence that followed was deafening. There were 7 of them. Megan, 3 developers, 2 project managers, and a senior analyst. They stared at me with expressions ranging from horror to defiance. Megan, to her credit, didn't even flinch. Mrs. Blackwell, she said, her voice smooth as silk. We were just discussing the importance of authentic partnerships in business. Nothing personal. Nothing personal, I repeated. Of course. I walked past them without another word, my heart pounding but my face perfectly calm. I went straight to Marcus's office. It's time, I said. The next morning, Marcus called an all-hands meeting. Every employee at the New York headquarters, over 400 people, gathered in the main auditorium. The energy was tense. Unscheduled company-wide meetings usually meant layoffs or mergers. Marcus stood at the podium, his expression unreadable. I was seated in the front row, dressed in a simple black dress, my hair pulled back, my hands folded in my lap. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, Marcus began. I've called this meeting because it's come to my attention that there has been significant discussion about my personal life within these walls. Specifically, about my wife. The room went still. I could feel hundreds of eyes shifting toward me, then quickly away. I've heard the rumors. I know what's been said. And I've decided that instead of addressing them privately, I'm going to address them publicly. Because the truth deserves to be heard by everyone. He gestured toward the side door. Megan Ashford, would you please join me on stage? The color drained from Megan's face. For a moment, I thought she might refuse. But 400 pairs of eyes were watching, and her pride wouldn't allow her to cower. She stood, smoothed her designer skirt, and walked to the stage with her chin held high. Miss Ashford, Marcus said, his voice calm and professional. You've been quite vocal about your opinions regarding my wife. You've called her a gold digger, a trophy wife, an uneducated woman who married me for my money. Is that correct? Megan's jaw tightened. I may have expressed some concerns about. A simple yes or no will suffice. A long pause. Yes. Marcus nodded. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick manila folder. This is my wife's personnel file. The real one. Not the sanitized version in HR, but the complete record of her contributions to this company. I'd like you to read it. Out loud. Every single page. He held the folder out to her. Megan stared at it like it was a live grenade. Mr. Blackwell, I don't think. Read it. The command in his voice left no room for argument. With trembling hands, Megan took the folder and opened it. Vanessa Marie Morgan, she read, her voice barely above a whisper. Ph.D. in Computational Mathematics, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Graduated summa cum laude at age 22. Youngest doctoral candidate in the department's history. The murmuring started immediately. Continue, Marcus said. Megan turned the page, and her voice grew smaller. Primary inventor of the Titan analytics algorithm. Patent holder for 17 proprietary technologies currently in use across all Titan Industries products. Estimated value of intellectual property contributions, $2.3 billion. The murmuring became gasps. Keep going. By page 3, Megan's voice was cracking. Recipient of the IEEE Computer Society Technical Achievement Award. Named one of Forbes' most influential women in tech under the pseudonym Vita Morgan. Author of 34 peer-reviewed papers on machine learning and data architecture. Consulted by the Department of Defense on cybersecurity protocols. Invited lecturer at Stanford, Harvard, and Cambridge. Tears were streaming down her face now, but Marcus showed no mercy. There's more. Read the last section. Megan could barely speak. Current role at Titan Industries, Chief Technology Architect. Security clearance, Level 1. Compensation, declined. All salary redirected to the Titan Educational Foundation, a non-profit that provides STEM scholarships to underprivileged students in Appalachian communities. She looked up, mascara running down her cheeks. I didn't know. I didn't. You didn't know, Marcus said, his voice finally showing a hint of the anger he had been suppressing, because you didn't bother to ask. You saw a woman who didn't match your idea of what success looks like, and you decided she was beneath you. You spread lies about her, humiliated her, and encouraged others to do the same. And you did it all based on nothing but your own prejudice and arrogance. He turned to the audience. Vanessa has chosen to remain anonymous for years because she wanted her work to stand on its own merits. She didn't want her gender, her background, or her relationship to me to color how people perceived her contributions. But I will not stand by while her character is assassinated by someone who hasn't accomplished a fraction of what she has. The auditorium was dead silent. Marcus turned back to Megan. Your internship is terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you out. My father, Megan started. Your father already knows. I called him this morning. He was disappointed, to say the least. Something about how he raised you better than this. 2 security guards appeared at the edge of the stage. Megan looked at them, then at me, then back at Marcus. For a moment, her face contorted with rage, and I saw the spoiled child beneath the polished exterior. This isn't fair, she spat. You can't do this to me. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my family is? I stood up. The movement drew every eye in the room. I walked to the stage slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch. When I reached Megan, I looked her directly in the eyes. I know exactly who you are, I said quietly, but the microphone caught every word. You're a young woman who was handed every advantage in life and still chose to tear other women down instead of building yourself up. You had access to the best education, the best connections, the best opportunities, and you used them to spread cruelty and lies. I took a step closer. But here's what I want you to understand, Megan. I'm not angry at you. I feel sorry for you. Because one day, you're going to face a challenge that your father's money can't solve and your family's name can't erase. And when that day comes, you'll realize that the only thing that matters is what you've built with your own hands, your own mind, your own character. I gestured to the room around us. I built this. Not because I'm Marcus's wife, but because I spent 20 years learning, failing, struggling, and refusing to give up. Every algorithm, every patent, every line of code came from sleepless nights and thankless work. And no amount of gossip will ever take that away from me. I stepped back. Security will see you out now. I hope you learned something from this. I really do. As Megan was escorted from the stage, sobbing openly now, Marcus took my hand. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, I'd like to formally introduce you to Vanessa Morgan Blackwell, the true genius behind Titan Industries. And my partner in every sense of the word. The applause started slowly, then built into a standing ovation. People I had known for years were looking at me with new eyes, with respect, with awe. The developers who had laughed at Megan's jokes couldn't meet my gaze. The project managers who had whispered behind my back were clapping the hardest, trying to make up for their complicity. I didn't need their approval. But I won't lie. It felt good. The aftermath was swift and thorough. Megan Ashford's termination made national news, though not for the reasons she would have wanted. The story of the senator's daughter versus the secret genius went viral, with most of the internet firmly on my side. Her social media accounts, once filled with carefully curated images of her glamorous life, were flooded with criticism. She deleted them all within a week. Senator Ashford, facing a tough re-election campaign, publicly apologized for his daughter's behavior and announced a significant donation to the Titan Educational Foundation. Whether it was genuine remorse or political calculation, I didn't particularly care. The scholarship fund grew by $2 million overnight. The 6 employees who had laughed along with Megan in the server room were called into HR one by one. 3 of them were terminated for violating the company's code of conduct. The other 3 received formal warnings and mandatory sensitivity training. I didn't ask for anyone to be fired, but Marcus and the board decided that participating in targeted harassment was grounds for dismissal, regardless of how good they were at their jobs. Culture matters, Marcus said when I asked if the terminations were too harsh. If people think they can tear someone apart for sport with no consequences, we don't have a company worth saving. As for me, I stepped out of the shadows. It wasn't easy. After years of comfortable anonymity, being recognized at conferences and interviewed by magazines felt strange and overwhelming. But something had shifted inside me that day on the stage. I was tired of hiding. Tired of letting other people's perceptions dictate my choices. I had earned my place in this industry, and it was time to claim it openly. I started giving lectures. I published under my real name. I mentored young women from backgrounds like mine, kids who had been told they were too poor, too rural, too other, to succeed in tech. I showed them my story and told them the truth. The path is hard, but it's not impossible. 6 months after the incident, I received a letter. It was from Megan. The envelope was plain, the handwriting careful and precise. Inside was a single page. Mrs. Blackwell. I don't expect you to read this, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. I spent my whole life believing that success was something you were born into, not something you earned. When I saw you, I saw everything I was afraid of, proof that my advantages didn't make me special. Instead of admiring you, I tried to tear you down. It was cowardly and cruel, and I have no excuse. After I left Titan, I lost a lot. Friends who only liked me for my connections. Opportunities that dried up when my reputation soured. For the first time in my life, I had to face who I really was, and I didn't like what I saw. I've enrolled in a community college program for data science. It's humbling to be a beginner at 24, surrounded by people who know more than I do. But I think that's the point. I'm finally learning what it means to earn something. I don't expect us to ever be friends. But I wanted you to know that your words that day changed something in me. I'm trying to be better. Megan. I read the letter twice, then set it down on my desk. What does it say? Marcus asked from the doorway. She says she's sorry. She's going back to school. Trying to start over. Do you believe her? I thought about it for a long moment. I think I do. People can change. I have to believe that. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? Marcus smiled and kissed my forehead. That's why I love you. Even after everything, you still see the best in people. Not the best, I corrected. The potential. There's a difference. 1 year later, I was invited to give the commencement speech at MIT. As I stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of young faces full of hope and terror, I thought about everything that had led me to this moment. The coal-dusted town where I learned to dream. The basement startup where I learned to build. The boardroom where I learned to hide. And the stage where I finally learned to stand. They will doubt you, I told the graduates. They will underestimate you. They will call you names designed to make you feel small. Gold digger. Diversity hire. Affirmative action case. Lucky. They will try to reduce your achievements to something simple and dismissible, because your success challenges their worldview. I leaned into the microphone. Let them talk. And while they're talking, you keep building. Build so loudly and so brilliantly that one day, they'll have no choice but to read your resume out loud and weep. The applause was thunderous. As I walked off the stage, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Watched your speech. You were right. Still trying. Thank you. M. I smiled, slipped the phone back into my pocket, and walked into the sunlight. Some people build walls to keep others out. I decided to build bridges instead. Not because I'm naive, but because I know the truth. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so undeniably excellent that your critics have to witness your success whether they like it or not. And that, I've learned, is worth more than any amount of money in the world.